Divorce is tough, but you know what's even tougher? Trying to sell a house in the middle of a divorce. I've seen couples lose tens of thousands of dollars, not because of the judge, not because of the market, but because they couldn't agree on a realtor, or the listing price, or who should fix the furnace. So if you're going through a divorce in Illinois, and there's a house on the line, what you do next could protect your equity, your credit, and your sanity. So let's talk about how to do this the right way. First is to shift the mindset from being opponents to being a partner on this transaction. In the courtroom, you might feel like adversaries, but when it comes to selling this marital residence, you are business partners, whether you like it or not. The market doesn't care who filed for divorce, and the buyer, they don't reward grudges. To get through this and walk away with the value that you have created, it starts with shifting your mindset from emotion to execution, from personal to professional. Once we worked with a couple, let's call them Maria and David for this video, and they had been married for 17 years and their divorce got bitter fast. Maria wanted to fix the house up before the listing. David said, no way, let's sell it as it is. They fought about every showing, every tiny repair, and every price drop. No one budged. They dug their heels in. That home, it's set for 10 months. Interest rates rose, taxes piled up, and by the time they sold, they had lost over $40,000 in equity. Now here's what you should do if you find yourself in a similar situation. First is to hire a realtor, hopefully someone who knows how to handle divorce sales. And then second, keep the communication strictly business, or go through your attorney if you have to. Now remember, conflict equals cash drain. Cooperation equals payout. Well, who actually owns what? Illinois is an equitable distribution state, and that doesn't mean equal, it means fair. So if you bought the house during the marriage, it's usually marital property, even if the only name on the house is one person. We had a client, I'm going to call her Tanya for this video, who thought that she'd be entitled to the full value of the house because she put her name on it alone. But during the marriage, they used joint funds for the down payment, for utilities, and for upgrades. And when we pulled the financial records, it was clear. The house was marital, no matter the name on the title. So make sure you do this. Pull the deed, the mortgage, and any prenups or marital agreements. And if you claim something is separate, back it up with clean paper trails. No commingling, no joint payments, and no gray areas. Clear records, they equal strong legal footing. Now, what about selling without consent? Now, this is one of the biggest myths that we see, that one spouse can just call up the realtor, stick a sign in the yard, and move on. Not so fast. If the other spouse still has a legal interest in the house and they do not agree to sell, then you will need to get the court involved. The judge has options. The judge can order a sale. The judge can force the parties to sign documents. The judge can appoint a receiver, which is a third party, to handle the sale of the house. And the judge could also order an appraisal and then use that as a part of the property division, settling all pricing disputes. I remember once we worked with a couple, I'm going to call them again, Carlos and Jennifer for purposes of this video. Carlos demanded that the listing be $30,000 over the market, and he did it just to make his point. Jennifer, on the other hand, she refused to cooperate with weekend showings, despite knowing that's when a lot of people are looking for homes. Not surprisingly, the listing stalled. And as they kept arguing back and forth, mortgage rates, well, they went up. And by the time they agreed on a lower price, a price that would sell the house, the spring rush was over and many buyers had simply moved on. Unfortunately, the judge eventually had to step in, but the damage was done. By then, they lost equity. So if you are stuck in a standoff, here's how to move things forward before the market moves on without you. Set pricing based on comps or a neutral appraisal. And if cooperation stalls, file with the court sooner rather than later. Remember, the market won't wait for your marriage to untangle. Delays equal real money lost. Another aspect of selling a home during a divorce is don't assume that the mortgage is covered. Just because your name's off the utilities or you've moved into a new place doesn't mean that you are off the hook. Until the house is sold or refinanced, if your name is still on the mortgage, you are still legally responsible for the payments. And we had a client, I'm going to call him George for this video. he moved downtown and he assumed that his ex, Megan, was still handling the mortgage. And for Megan's part, she assumed that George was still paying on the mortgage because his name was first. No one paid. 3 months had passed and the home went into default and both of their credit took a nosedive. So make sure your temporary order or there's an agreement in place in court defining who is to pay the mortgage payments during the course of the divorce. Don't guess. It is wise to monitor and make sure those payments are getting paid if you have any suspicion that your soon-to-be ex will not pay them or has not paid them. Now, another aspect is the buyout trap. We see this a lot. That's where one spouse wants to keep the house for the kids. That sounds noble, and from a parental perspective, I totally get it, but it is sometimes not workable. You need to do the math first. We have seen so many examples where people have fallen into this trap and it harms them in the future. And in some cases, we've seen people keep the house and then lose it in the future while their credit takes a nosedive. It is so important to make sure that if you want to keep the house, you have plenty of margin in your capability to keep that home. Don't fall into that trap. So before you say yes to keeping the house, stop and run the numbers first. And that means talking to a lender first before agreeing to the buyout and make sure you have plenty of approval and that there's a lot of margin in your capability to continue payments on the mortgage or a similar mortgage. Understand the property taxes, of course, understanding what the maintenance history looks like, what maintenance will you have coming up, is there any deferred maintenance? Understand all of that. And most importantly, choose stability over sentiment. Now let's shift gears to financial orders when you can and when you cannot act. Unlike some states, Illinois does not automatically freeze your financial activity once a divorce is filed. But the court can issue restraining orders that block you from selling or refinancing the home, changing the deed or the title, or transferring ownership without permission. And if you ignore one of these orders, you're not just risking the sale, you're risking your entire property division in your divorce. If you are tempted to act quickly by selling, refinancing, or transferring something, press that pause button and ask yourself, have any financial orders been entered? If your answer is yes or you're unsure, you need to get to court and ask permission from the judge. Otherwise, you have to wait for the green light, which may come weeks or months down the road. Remember that one misstep can upend everything that you've been negotiating. So selling the house, that's one thing, but keeping it, that's a whole different challenge. If you are trying to hold on to your home in the divorce, what you do before the final agreement matters just as much as what's on paper at the end. So in this next video, I'll walk you through the #1 mistake that causes people to lose their home in an Illinois divorce, and I'll show you what to do instead to protect what matters.